Hey guys, Mr. T here, just redoing the lesson video from today because it stopped recording when I accidentally locked the iPad. So this video is on reading share listings. You can get a lot of information about shares on a share listing. These days you would do it online with a website like Yahoo Finance, but in the old days it would have been in a newspaper, and because you're going to do a test on this, it's going to be printed on paper, so it's basically like reading it off a newspaper, what I need you to be able to do. Share listings are basically just tables. They indicate important information about the shares in a company on a particular day. This info gives you the ability to make the most basic decisions about purchasing shares. It shouldn't be everything that you use to decide to buy the shares. You would do research about the company, but this gives some basic information. So a share listing looks like this. So this is a section of one of the share listings. It's only covering 4 different companies. And the point of the notes below is to explain what all of these columns actually mean, because your job in this topic is to be able to tell me the story about the company. Say, for example, Abacus. What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? Okay? So, I will breeze through these right now. You were sent these notes to avoid you having to write it in full, so I can quickly go through them and get into an example. So what is the stock column about? That's just to identify the company we're talking about. What is the 4 p.m. close column? Share markets close at 4 p.m. each day. So this number represents what was the last price that it was sold for in dollars. So $1.88 for Abacus. What is move? Well, move is how much the share price changed since the previous day. And you need to look at whether it says positive or negative. So what is it saying here? Abacus went up 4 cents since yesterday. So if you were asked a question to work out what price was it the previous day, well, you would do the opposite of the move. So right now it's $1.88 and it moved 4 cents positively from yesterday. So yesterday it must have been $1.84. Subtract or do the opposite of a positive move. So yeah, if positive, the move, the price increased. If negative for the move, the price decreased from yesterday, and can use it to calculate the price on the previous day. You just apply the opposite of the move indicated. What does volume mean? Volume is the number of shares that were traded. So that's both buying and selling. It sort of gives you an idea how interested people were in the company. Please, you must note the number indication. For example, 100s here. So, for example, Abacus, he didn't just have 2,341 shares traded on that day. It was 2,341 times by 100. So it was 234,100 shares that were traded on that day in Abacus. What is buy? Buy is the highest bid that anyone was placing on the shares to try to buy them. Remembering that a buyer wants to buy for as low as possible. A sell, the sell column tells you the lowest sell offers anyone was placing on the shares, remembering that a seller would want to sell for as high as possible. So that comment explains why these numbers shouldn't be the same, because buyers want to buy for as low as possible, 188, and sellers want to sell for as high as possible, okay? This just gives you an idea of how much people are willing to buy and sell them for. We don't actually get the information about the actual buying and selling prices people agreed to, because there would just be too many to fit into one column. It's sort of an average. Year high and low is self-explanatory. It tells you the highest and lowest selling prices for the shares in the past 365 days. What is that good for? It's good for comparing the current price to see if it's a good time to buy or sell. Day high or low is also self-explanatory. It's the highest and lowest selling prices for the shares in the past 24 hours. Dividend yield is slightly more complicated. Dividend yield shows the returns from dividends last year as a percentage of the current closing price. So to explain what dividends are, when you buy shares, you have ownership in part of the company. Now, normally you could make profit by buying those shares for a cheap price and selling them for higher to make a profit. But if a company is doing really well and it's making profits, sometimes they give out part of their profits among all their shareholders as a dividend. So you just get free money, basically, and it's paid per share that you own in that company. So the dividend might only be 50 cents, but if you had 100 shares in that company, 50 cents per share dividend, you would get $50 for free from the company just because you own the shares without having to sell the shares and losing ownership in the first place, okay? So dividend yield is giving you an idea of, as a percentage, how much money of what you spent are you getting back just in free money from the dividend payments, okay? So you can actually calculate the dividend per share a company paid the previous year using this formula. Dividend per share in the previous year is the yield divided by 100. Why? Because the dividend yield is in percentage, and then you multiply that by the closing price, and that calculation is going to tell you how much dividend did you get per share last year. In the dividend yield column, you'll also notice letters or lack of letters. So here we have FFF, there's no letter here. And sometimes you'll get P as well. What do those stand for? Well, in this country, dividends are a form of income, so they're going to be taxed at some point by the government, okay? For shares, taxing is known as the term franking instead, but that just means the same thing, it's tax. If you see that there's no letter next to the yield number, that means the company hasn't paid tax on that dividend and you're going to have to pay the tax. So that's sort of a negative thing. If you see F, that means the company is giving you fully franked dividends, which means the company paid the tax required on those dividends, so you don't have to pay any. And if you see P, that means the company partially paid some of the tax on the dividends, they're partially franked. Lastly, the PE ratio here, we're going to ignore that for now because the next exercise details it more. So just for this first exercise, you ignore it, it's just a number. So for example, this is a question that might be worth 5 marks on the very first page of the test, right at the bottom. You're going to describe the trading situation for a company, in this case Aberdeen. And so the question might say detail and use the info to explain whether you would purchase shares in Aberdeen on this particular day. So what you are doing here is you're going across the columns and you explain what each number means according to this box here that details what each of those numbers mean. Then you make a purchasing decision based on that information. There's not really one right or one wrong answer. You just have to explain yourself, okay, based on that story that you formulated. Some of the marks are for reading off the information correctly and telling me what they mean, and the remaining marks are for explaining the decision properly. So let's have a go at this. You can do it in dot points, that's fine. Aberdeen closed at $1.82 today, which is stable from yesterday. Why am I saying that? Because there was no move. It didn't change from yesterday's price. 51500 Aberdeen. Oh, what's happening? Aberdeen. My screen is a bit sweaty from my hands and it's hot in this room. Aberdeen shares were traded, showing some interest. Buyers were bidding $1.82 and sellers were offering $1.84, only a 2-cent difference, which explains the trades that happened people were interested in them. Why? Because they were sort of in agreement with the price. They were very close to each other. Aberdeen has been up to $1.92 and down to $1.39 in the past year. So the price today is on the high side. Aberdeen offers a good dividend yield of 4.67%, fully franked, which is a good thing. The company's paying for your tax and you're getting an investment return of about 4.67%, which is better than what banks offer in their savings accounts. So this story, we have a negative, it didn't move from yesterday. A positive, there was quite a bit of trade. A positive, the prices between buyers and sellers was quite close, so that meant trades were more likely to go through. This is the biggest negative. The highest price has been in the last year is $1.92 and the lowest is $1.39. So currently the price is quite high, so that's a big negative. But another positive, which is quite good, is that you get a pretty good return and the company takes care of you because it's fully franked. You could really answer this for or against, as long as you accentuate the good or the bad parts. But let's do a more nuanced thing, and I'm going to repeat the answer offered by one of your classmates. So overall, don't buy right now. See what happens with the price in the short term as the company is mostly a good buy. There's a lot of positives, but it is expensive today. So that might change tomorrow. There might be a move tomorrow. You never know. So you can see that we use the information in the blue box to interpret what these numbers mean. We dot pointed them so you could get your marks for detailing the information, and then you get your final marks by making a choice about whether to buy or sell based on the story told by the information you interpreted, okay? So that's that lesson video done. Hopefully that helps you out, and see you in the next video.